Hi, Dr. White.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks. Good evening. Good evening.
Hey,
Hi, Miss Downer.
Hi. I'm gonna be off camera. I'm just coming in from work, so I wear clothes with my work name, so I have to come off camera.
mío.
Qué cosa, oye, me está dando problema el dichoso Zoom de Evelyn. A mí, porque yo lo tengo aquí, que ahora.
Imprímemela atrás, porque no.
Evelyn, you're not on mute.
I just muted you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
All right. Well, I think we have enough folks to get started here. President Yarborough did let me know he's going to be a few minutes late today, but he will be joining us. And I think we have our first few presenters, so let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Hope everyone's day is going okay. First items on the agenda are the information-only items. Are there any comments or questions related to any of these? I'll just note that several of these date back to July 1 as a start date, and it is October 20th. And this is a risky practice if the board chose not to approve these, understanding that these are the superintendent's purview here in the information only. There's also one or two others that if the board chose not to approve it, it would create a lot of issues if work has been happening. So I'm hoping that we can have these done in a more timely fashion to avoid riskiness. We'll jump into abstracts then. The first one is item 3.1, a school improvement grant. Mr. Foreman?
Good afternoon. So this is for our school improvement grant. It's for $300,000. We're going to use the money. We have to pay a portion of my climate and culturist position salary is paid. A portion is paid through this, and the remainder is paid through Commissioners Network. And we're also paying for a math intervention teacher for grades 7 and 8 through this grant. In addition, we're going to hire some tutors, some academic tutors. We'll also use some of the money for climate and culture to help with our chronic absenteeism. We'll use a portion for some incentives, and we're also going to use it to purchase more supplies for our writing across the curriculum, as well as to provide some field experiences inside and outside of the school for our students.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments or questions related to this one? I had none either, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Here's an item 3.2 is just a little grant. The 28 million plus Alliance District grant. Ms. Bonanno?
Yeah, just a tiny one. So this is a presentation of the FY26 Alliance District grant. The abstract in front of you matches the application to the state. Alliance will fund 252 full-time positions this year. We spend about 25 million of the 28 on salaries and health benefits for our full-time employees. And then we have some contractual programming that's going on through our Alliance grant. I will say this grant increased year over year, which allowed us to pick up some core curriculum costs for the district that are new to the Alliance program. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Are there comments or questions related to this? I one question, if we could just have a reminder, so the district, so this is the part of so there's the ECS funding,
Mhm.
which is the largest amount, and then anything beyond a certain point, I think $142 million has to be done through the Alliance grant. And what's the process we have to do to get that? It's the grant application process?
Sure. So the Alliance District Grant is a program that was created and built under the ECS formula as a way to ensure that the highest need districts in the state were getting the increase and using the increase for very specific interventions. So ECS goes directly to the municipality, and then that gets funneled to us through the city's contribution, the mayor's contribution annually to the Board of Education. Alliance comes directly to the district, but it only comes through an approved application. So annually, we need to submit our program and our plan to the state for review. That usually opens during the month of August. And just around this time, we solidify all of the plans with the state. And so that happens every single year. Our application needs to be approved before we can draw down any funding. And our application has to be linked to the ESSA targets that the state determines for the district. So all activities that we write about need to be in alignment with the targets that are set by the district, inclusive of chronic absenteeism, the DPI for literacy and math, et cetera.
Okay. So thank you for that overview.
Sure.
And yeah, this is just one of those examples, I mean, of a state which is relatively generous compared to other states, does kind of lock up some of these funds where we have to jump through these hoops. And in the end, we end up just using it to hire teachers and a lot of other staff on it. So I think that's interesting. Is this a time-consuming process to put together the applications, or is it relatively straightforward?
It is not time consuming because the system allows you to copy over year. So expenses that were approved in the prior year often are approved maybe with new questions or additional rationale needed. And so it does not change dramatically year to year. The reason I lifted the new stuff that we did this year, and I see that Ms. Hannons is here this evening, is to show that when there is an increase, we do need to do something new with it. And so we were able to support some core initiatives this year with that.
Okay, well, at least it's not doesn't sound like a hugely cumbersome process.
It's a process, but it certainly could be worse.
No doubt. Any other comments or questions on this? Hearing none, we'll go on to 3.3, a bilingual grant. Dr. Robles Rivas.
Good afternoon. So this grant is specifically serving as an allocation for all students in mandated programs that the Spanish-speaking students that are all in the mandated programs for bilingual education. And this grant is basically is a supplement our core curriculum, adding native language supplemental materials, also supporting students in addition to the support that we give in a classroom. We also support them hiring tutors to enhance small group instructions in the classroom to support the classroom teachers. So this is basically more to add to the regular instructional practices that we have in each of the classrooms, but it's serving all the mandated bilingual students.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions related to this? I had none either, so thank you very much. We'll move on to 3.4, a Family Resource Center grant for several of our schools. Dr. Joseph Lumpkin.
Good afternoon. Yes, so we are presenting the competitive application for the Family Resource Centers that support, that are located at 4 of our schools, Barack Obama, Fairhaven, Hill Central, and King Robinson. And this program provides a range of services, including early childcare and education components, school-aged child components, after-school programs, summer programs, family support, supporting families through workshops. As I said, it's important to note these are competitive grants, and we fight tooth and nail to win every competitive grant we can get our hands on. These FRCs are located at the schools I mentioned, but they support what we call the catchment area. So they also support the communities around the schools in which they serve. And as you will see, these programs are strategically located across our neighborhoods and provide a range of additional supports to families, especially our younger families, or families of younger children, but they also are required to provide services and youth development supports across the lifespan of students within the school community. Their services, as I said, range from parents as teachers support, early child development, doing assessments on students' needs emotionally as well as developmentally. This New Haven is highly regarded for providing high quality services. We have continuously won these applications, and we are in the application process, I should point out, and this is an abstract that reflects the application.
All right, thank you very much. Are there comments or questions? I had none after a thorough description. Item 3.5 is state after school grant, and then 3.6 looks like it's to be similar. Dr. Joseph Lumpkin.
Yes, as I said, we aggressively pursue. This is another competitive grant. We were pretty excited to win these two grants. We knew that in the age of serious cuts to after school and these additional funding, we knew that it would be highly competitive. We worked very hard to apply for these grants, and we're actually pleased to say that the abstract is here, but we were awarded 2 of the 3 applications. Again, aggressively knowing that going after 3 was a stretch, but we did it with the support of the superintendent, and we were able to win $153,000 a year for 2 years at each of the sites. And the first site is within the Fairhaven community, part of our efforts to ground our work within neighborhoods. And we will be supporting this grant to service students within the neighborhood where students live. So regardless of where they go to school, the participants in this grant will be able to access the services for Fairhaven. And also, same with King Robinson, again, $153,000 a year. Students accessing a variety of enrichment activities, from sports to arts and other enrichment programs. And again, at King Robinson, located there in the Dixwell, Newhaltville neighborhood, right on the edge of the Beaver Hills neighborhood, students within those communities will be able to access the programs.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments on 3.5 or 3.6? I had none either, so thank you very much. We'll move on to item 4.1, which is a substitute ARPA agreement. Mr. McCain?
Good afternoon. So this agreement came about, the Board of Ed had approved this prior to this, before we knew that ARPA funding was going to be the backbone from the state. The state pushed back, said we needed to put more ARPA language in it. Michael Bowler from the city attorney wrote it, making sure that all the ARPA language is now in it that will cover the Board of Ed and cover the city. So this is a substitution to show that we've complied to all of the ARPA language that need to be placed in it.
All right, thank you. Are there comments or questions? I had none either, so thank you. Oh, Attorney Alexiadis.
Hi, I would just want to add that my colleague Mike Bowler is still working on dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. We've gotten some feedback from the state, and it's about, I would say that the agreement before you is about 98% ready for prime time. So it won't change in substance, but some of the fine print may continue to be adjusted over the next week or so.
Okay. Do you anticipate it's going to change much between now and posting on Friday for next Monday's meeting?
Hopefully it'll be done by then.
Okay. Thank you.
Like I said, it's I think they are they're going to deal with it in the exhibits. I think is the the issue at the moment.
Okay.
But but Mike is handling it. I'm not, so that's just I mean I'm in the loop to some extent. So that's what we got.
So
All right.
Basically,
our
we need
only,
to we need to tie this up so that we can get the reimbursement.
right. Our only concern is that it's going to extend beyond the timeline that was approved by the Board of Ed, and whether or not it now has to go to the Board of Alders for approval because it's longer than a 12-month contract. So that's something that we're looking into now.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
typically, if I may, typically contracts of this size and duration are supposed to be approved by the Board of Alders. We are also looking at that because that will add another few weeks to the process.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Danner?
Is this something that we can get before it goes before the board meeting? I mean, like, are we voting on it Monday? And it's not finished at 90%?
So, yeah, I guess, I mean, so I guess
I get it,
for me
but
personally, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I'm sorry, I get it that it needs to go to the board at Alder by a certain time, before whatever, but I think we should have the full document to vote on.
I certainly, I mean, just my opinion, I certainly agree the full document to vote on or some memo that characterizes what the remaining items are. If they're substantive, then I think that's an issue. But if it's if it's relatively minor and we kind of have a sense of, we're trying to finalize the language in this little section and it doesn't really affect the cost of things or the vendor performance, et cetera, that's one thing. So I guess my request would be that by posting time that there's a memo attached that says this is what's, it's an estimate. This is at 99%, 95%, 100%, and what's left, and try to characterize it. It's my opinion.
Then if I can accept that, Chair Wilcox, I can accept that. If there's a memo, then fine. But other than that, I think we should be given the same as the Board of Alders. So,
Okay.
all right.
Thank you very much. Mr. McCain, Attorney Alexiadis, does that sound reasonable to just have a memo that kind of characterizes where things are so we can have a sense of are we almost all the way there? Are we all the way there? Or is there still some substantive things that could really change something in the agreement?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm not expecting that any substantial change, but there was that Attorney Bowler and Attorney Williams from my office were on a call on Friday with the state that I think Mr. McCain was on it as well.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then there's been follow-up emails going around today. So I do expect the open issues to be wrapped up by Friday. And we can
understand that there's
and Mr. McCain, I'm sorry, Mr. McCain and I can, report accordingly.
okay. Yeah, understanding that there's, you're working with people at the state as well, and we're meeting their requirements, and they may or may not be responsive enough. But I do agree we should have a sense of exactly what's outstanding, if there's anything remaining outstanding by Friday afternoon posting time.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this item? Thank you, Ms. Downer, for raising that concern. We will move on to the agreements. Item 5.1 is an agreement with the Children's Community Program Connecticut. Ms. Jackson? Let's see that Ms. Jackson is on. Is somebody else here to speak on this item? Should we come back to it? I guess a big question is there any comments or questions of it that wasn't answered by the supplementary material that was posted? So I had no further questions on this one, so I'm comfortable moving it forward. And anybody else have any comments or questions? Should we? If so, we can wait and see if Ms. Jackson can join us otherwise.
None for me.
I'm comfortable too moving it forward.
Okay, thank you both very much. So we'll jump to 5.2, which is agreement with Insight Coaching. Ms. Bonanno?
Yes, so Insight Coaching is going to support one of the main objectives of the Federal Magnet School Grant that Career is one of the school recipients for. So the grant requires 50 hours of professional development in the specific intervention that we are implementing with the new program. So there are two interventions at Career. One of them is project-based learning. The other is the Career Academy model. So a few weeks ago, I was here presenting on NCAC to cover the professional development necessary for that intervention. And tonight I'm here to talk about the sustained support that we will be putting in place at Career for PBL. So Career works with the Buck Institute for the 3-day PBL 101 workshop, which is essentially the kickoff to project-based learning and how do you write a PBL. The grant requires sustained support for teachers so that as they are implementing these things in this classroom, we are giving them coaching and feedback and helping them to revise and make the units more rigorous, et cetera, as they're teaching them and learning about the implementation. Buck does have a support, which is more expensive for this, but they are not local either. So with their support comes travel fees and less flexibility to meet the school's calendar. So what we've been able to do at Career is identify the exact 40 days that are set aside for the teacher meetings that are happening within the school within the contractual day to ensure that we can get this work done and off the ground. And so Insight will be supporting us with that. Insight has worked in the district at HSC, is currently working at BRADA, and has worked on all kinds of different initiatives throughout the years in the district. So they are familiar with our core curriculum, but also familiar with some of the specifics around the New Haven Public Schools academic programming.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions? I had none either. So thank you very much.
Welcome.
Move on to 5.3, which is agreement with Custom Insight. This is listed as Mr. Tabaris, but I'm not seeing him on the call. Is there someone else that can speak to this item?
I think. I see Gemma on.
I can also chime in. This is basically the entity that we use to ensure that we are administering our annual school culture survey. You may recall they presented virtually the results of the survey, I believe it was in May. So again, it allows us to then be able to compare our data year after year if we stay with the same vendor.
All right, thank you. Are there comments or questions? So just also as background for any members of the public or anyone that might not be familiar with, these would be the school climate surveys. And so these are done across all the sites, all the different schools, and able to take a look at both students, teachers, and I think other staff, and I might be missing a group or two there. But to be able to look at that, compare schools against others and year over year, et cetera. So it's more complicated than just a survey, which has been a criticism of these types of things in the past. So All right, hearing nothing else on this. We have two amendments that are very minor. It's just changing the account number. So 6.1 is with American Education Solutions and 6.2 is area with ACES, Area Cooperative Educational Services. Both of Ms. Bonanno am I characterizing that correctly? Just an
That
account?
is correct. Yes, so when we put these in July, our carryover accounts were not set up. And so now that the fiscal year has turned over, we need to change the funding to be charged to the appropriate fiscal year. And that's all this is.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on 6.1 or 6.2? Hearing none, we'll move on to number 7.1, which is a data sharing agreement. So, Mr. Nguyen.
Yeah, so this is for Career High School. They purchased a certification in career exploration software program called U-Science. And U-Science is a platform to assist students with their academic and career journeys. It's an industry recognized certification for students to validate their skills for specific careers. And this software will help them rework their advisory program to align with the federal magnet grant to enhance their career pathways initiatives. And to assist with some of the questions, if you have any, is Ms. Strand too.
All right, thank you. So, any comments or questions on this? Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, thank you. Wanted to hear a little bit more about how the program, how this particular software, how the program works. You said it provides a skills certificate or certification.
Yeah, it allows for industry recognized certification for students to validate their skills for specific careers. So they'll take tests, they'll take interests, it monitors what they like, and also matches what classes they're taking in order to put them in the right pathway in regards to science.
It's the driving force behind their Southern Connecticut State University MGT 100 Intro to Business course, which is primarily a 9th grade course. They're doing a year-long career exploration and will gain the skills to not only know what path they're on, but also to promote themselves as people who would fit that. I don't have the specific credentials that it would offer, but that's part of that alignment of knowing how to present themselves as professionals.
Okay. Thank you. And so I'm trying to picture in my head how it works, because there's certain pieces of information that it asks for, such as their address, date of birth, and I'm wondering if their date year can be used instead of their date of birth. It also asks about their parental information, home address, contact information. How is that utilized in the software? And does it, yeah. I'm just trying to imagine what the application is.
My understanding is anything that is on the form that's clicked, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, received from student or parent or guardian is given voluntarily as input in some of these surveys and creating a resume and things like that.
And also too, it connects them with other third parties. Like if they're interested at a university or a certain industry, then it allows them a way to contact and provide information for a way of communication to further their knowledge of that career.
Okay, and does it help them complete applications by filling in information for them, or is the information given to the third party, then the third party mails or emails information to the parents or the students?
It's sort of like an interactive platform being used for the class. I believe it's got modules to guide them through some project-based learning, where the project for this case is essentially themselves learning, doing interest surveys to learn what they want to do, making sure that there's not exposure bias that's driving students' connections to careers, because we know a lot of our students, I mean, most of us don't have an understanding of all the things that are out there for any of us to do as a profession. And it helps the students really assess themselves as individuals and align with possible future paths, and then learn what is sort of industry standard for how you present yourself in those spaces. It's almost like a more robust Naviance, if you're familiar with that. It's significantly more robust than that, but it's a similar concept.
Okay. It sounds very valuable for career exploration and matching of skills and helping them to identify skills. One question I had just between now and when this is posted is what happens or what is lost if a student doesn't provide a date of birth, their home address, or their parents don't provide their address and contact information. And my question is around just limiting student exposure. If that inhibits the functionality of the program, I do see a place where their school can be listed and their home zip code can be listed. So my question is other information really needed that will really dial in where a student is located?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something we're all really cautious about, is having student information out there. The date of birth, when I look at the chart, does seem to be something that's pulled from the roster or the API from the school. But it looks to me like the address and those other things where it says provided by the student or parent, we can certainly look into John some protocols for helping the teachers communicate to students what they do and do not need to provide.
Yeah, I think in some cases too, it's a way of having the students differentiate, because sometimes you'll have the same name of certain people, especially with career. So another way, a tiebreaker in some cases, is the date of birth. And in addition, with the addresses, I think some of it is voluntary. And in addition, with communication with those other industries, in some cases, if they want stuff mailed to them, then that would be another way for them to receive that information.
They UScience also provided some additional information today about that they follow the encryption and the data and privacy protections according to NIST 853 guidelines. That they do encrypt that data. That it seems like they are following all the best practices that we expect of a company working with young people in schools.
That's great. Thank you.
They also have policies around if there is a complaint from a parent about information, looping in the Board of Ed immediately. There's a set time frame that they have for when they need to let you all know.
Thank you.
So I think my question that I had, I'm sorry, were you done, President Yarmo?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my question was along the lines of the things that are marked as both received from school and received from parent. Does that mean that the company's receiving it with the permission of the parent or guardian in these situations? So I just was trying to it was a little unclear to me based on the columns that were there of, are we in the schools going to be sending the information without the knowledge or permission of the parent or guardian?
So we are that middle column, the information from the schools, and the other information is provided by the student, and the parents are not required to provide any information. That's what the company told us. And if a parent wishes to have their student information deleted or destroyed, they can as well. They'll take care of that.
Okay, thank you.
It sort of works, the way Naviance or Aptigee would, in that it is an integrated platform.
All right.
Within
Any
the
other
classroom.
questions related to this one? Okay. Then we will move on to purchase orders. 8.1 is under the TIPS contract with Fulcrum Management. Ms. Red-Hannons? You're muted.
There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. So this is our agreement with Fulcrum, better known as Thought Exchange. This is our AI platform that we use to engage participants in structured online questions. It can quickly capture information and analyze complex data in a matter of seconds. It allows us to give more voice to our stakeholders and to reach all of our stakeholders really easily. And so you may recall we've used it in the past with helping to shape our strategic operating plan. This year, one of our big pushes is on AI integration within our learning community. And so the plan is that we will use Thought Exchange to get a pulse on how our community, teachers, parents, students, administrators are feeling about AI usage in a K-12 setting.
All right,
The
thank you.
superintendent also has other plans as well on using Thought Exchange as well for to get broader perspectives on topics as well.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, thank you. I remember this platform and its utility to us, and that it has been valuable in the ways that we've used it. My question is around our district getting our money's worth of maximizing this plan. It's listed as about $4,400 a month, and so my question is, how have we been getting our money's worth, and what is the plan for really maximizing the investment? And one way I look at that is, one, if there are limits, how are we getting close to those limits of utilization? And then also, are there ways that we or others within the district could utilize it more, that would be appropriate for its design and what we're investing?
We've used it last year in several small group settings. When I say that, meaning with groups of like administrators. I just recently used it not too long ago with teachers at a particular school on particular topics when we want to synthesize information. We do have the capability of possibly expanding usage still at the same cost. I think you asked about, the question was around like other leaders in the district that could use it. We absolutely can have other leaders use it as well.
Okay, thank you. If there's an opportunity to, and it makes sense, I think it may be worth trying to maximize the investment for it. I don't know if it's appropriate in terms of our students, our high school students, and if they have maybe they have their own platform and a way of collecting data. But I think maybe a board meeting ago, there was just talk about what the students wanted to do on their own to better influence school climate within their particular schools. And maybe this is a way for them to get additional real-time data of what's happening. And actually, it may not have been the students. It might have been a district department that presented that information. But in any case, I appreciate your thinking about it. And if there are ways to maximize it, I'm in favor of that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And just as a follow-up to that, I did note that the documentation talks about, I think, that it's for up to 5 leaders. So I assume that's like 5 gatekeepers that have access that can set things up to then be able to roll out the Thought Exchange to whomever needs it. And I was just wondering if a principal, for instance, wanted to use this in their particular school, would they be able to do that? Does the district have a mechanism in place? Do people know who they would talk to gain access or to be able to set something up? Is there someone to work with on that?
Yeah, if a principal wanted to use it, we have not rolled it out to the schools. The principals have seen it. We can talk about usage and how they would prefer to use it. The 5 leaders that you note that's on district level access, so that we could see thoughts as they go out into the community and improve those thoughts as they go out. But principals could possibly use it. We would just need to see what are we, you don't want to overly saturate the community as well, and that there's 40 schools on this particular tool. So we can have further conversations, but the capability is there. To answer your question, Board Member Wilcox, the capability is there for principals to utilize it as well.
Okay, thank you. And then just a final thought here is I do recommend that this is used and we factor in how to use this best during the budget planning season to try to get access to people's thoughts in terms of, so, we might hear from people saying, oh, the school wastes money, the district wastes money over here, or we should do this over here. And to be able to try to zero in and say, okay, what if people are seeing things that others are missing, how can we see that and gather that evidence, and also maybe use it in conjunction with the required budget forums that the district will be doing when you're meeting with the public. So being able to try to gather that kind of input, I think, would be extremely valuable.
Thank you.
All right. Hearing nothing else on this, we can move on to item 8.2, which is purchase under the PEPPM contract for Lenovo laptops. Mr. Simeon?
Yes, this is a purchase order to replenish a number of our Windows-based laptops. There's approximately 10,000 Windows-based laptops that aren't powerful enough to run Windows 11. So they're still on the old Windows 10 operating system that has a lot of security flaws in it, which has just been, those flaws have been remediated in Windows 11. So this is just a portion of the population of laptops that needs to be purchased. So we're trying to determine how much capital the IT budget has to support a multi-year rollout to get the 10,000 PCs redistributed.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions related to this? Dr. Yarbrough?
Thank you, Mr. Simeon. I have three questions. One is there an opportunity to recycle or sell or return in the laptops that are slated to be replaced? Is there any kind of recovery of funds through that process?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Right now, we're reviewing our recycling vendors. We used to use a sole practitioner out of North Haven. We've asked for that vendor to provide certain documents like certificates of insurance, certificates of destruction through national security standards. And they haven't been able to get us that information. So now we're out looking at other recycle vendors for that information and to see if that we could get some type of reimbursement. One of the things that we do with a Windows machine is we do remove the disk drives to be shredded. So none of the information that is on there can be extracted and used for some type of cyber activity. So we would just be able to recover any type of gold or titanium or any type of minerals that are in the circuit boards themselves.
Okay, great, thank you. And my last two questions, these are, the documentation says Chromebooks. So these Chromebooks will run a version of Windows. And then my second question is, yep.
Yeah, those are Chromebooks that we need to replace. Those aren't the 10,000 Lenovo laptops. I forgot that we were purchasing Lenovo Chromebooks, but those are Chromebooks that will replace some of the damaged Chromebooks in the schools, and also a lot of the educational programs that are running on the Chromebooks need a higher RAM configuration than our current Chromebooks. The current Chromebooks only have four gig of RAM. So the newer Chromebooks that we're purchasing have 8. So this will support all the future applications that we're going to be running on those Chromebooks.
Thank you for the clarification. And the last question is, it says that the operating system can be upgraded. And so one question is, how long are we thinking these will last? Which is kind of a hard question to ask in technology, but I'm curious of that. And what is the price difference of getting a Chromebook that will allow an upgradable operating system? Is that a thing, and how much more expensive would that be?
Well, the Chromebooks that we're purchasing now, those are high-end Chromebooks. So whatever Google operating software comes out can be automatically updated onto the Chromebooks that we're purchasing. So
Okay.
that shouldn't be an issue. The issue of longevity, if the device is well taken care of, these devices can last 5 years at a minimum. But as you understand, handing them out to students, they're handled pretty roughly. So I would say the average Chromebook life in the school system is about 2 to 3 years.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you. We'll move on to 8.3, which is a purchase order for roof repairs at Central Kitchen. Dr. White?
Yes, this is for those repairs. Recently, from the last storm, some pieces of roof and other debris came off the building. So this is to repair those things and for the safety of the building, and also so that we do not have water infiltration in the Central Kitchen.
All right, thank you. Comments or questions? All right, I had none. Move into contracts. There are 5 contracts, all related to snow removal. So Dr. White, as you present these, I just would request that you would also go into some detail on the monitoring and enforcement, and as well as also the new RFQ that went out to get this, and what's going to be different this year over last. If you could cover that in your description.
Absolutely. So as we put this out to bid, we looked at capacity and actually visual inspections. I conducted those inspections to see that the vendors had the equipment that they say they were going to have, and discuss staffing and the time capabilities to get this, and also directly ask them, how many zones can you successfully handle? And through that process, we came to these vendors that will be issued zones. One vendor will be able to do 3 zones, and the other vendors were given 2 other vendors were given 1 zone each. The difference this year is that in addition to real-time performance monitoring after each storm, we will be holding a meeting with the vendors to go over what has occurred during the storm, what happened, any issues, any disputes, and make sure that we're monitoring and documenting, because in the past there was not documentation of issues. So we're going to maintain better documentation and have an evaluation for each after each storm with the vendors.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments or questions about all of these as a whole or in any individual ones? Ms. Downer?
I have a few questions. I noticed that the contracts were for 7 months, but I just want to take because 2 of these vendors did a terrible job last year. I don't want to call them out, but they were able to handle, how many zones did they have each last year?
They had, I would have to check, but they had more than 1.
Okay, because they're coming in with just one, and they said they were able to do 2 or 3 zones or whatever those zones were, but now they're coming in a little higher just for this one zone when they were able to say that they can handle 2 or 3 or how many other zones. But the fact still remains that somehow these same vendors that did very terrible got on the bid again. The fact that we're not, I'm just talking for my health basically. And I don't understand what this is and why we're even having a conversation. So when this goes before the board, I hope we separate them because I will definitely be voting. I would like to vote on each one separately. I'm just giving you guys a heads up. Sorry. I will not be in agreement of 2 of them because they are known to not have done a great job last year. I also want to know, because I just checked WeatherSpark, why are these contracts for 7 months? It does not have, we do not have rain, snow, sleet for 7 months. And I looked at WeatherSpark last year just for New Haven, just to check it. It was 70 during the day and maybe one day was 40, but the others was 50. 30 is, anything below 30 is freezing temperature. Why do we have these contracts so extended out for 7 months? For one zone, that is, when they were capable, so they say, of doing more zones. So right now, on the table today, we have $600,000, but yet we still don't have a mitigation on how we can get this privatization out of here. So that, I just need to know why we have 7 months. Unless you're anticipating, it says October 15th. We're 5 days in. So are you anticipating snow in October? Or are we just paying people? Snow and ice.
The contract is paid by snow event. This length of time is to cover the winter season and also to begin the contracting process to make sure that everything is in place. While we haven't had storms this early in the year. It has happened in the past, but the point was to make sure that we had these in place and the vendors ready to go if we had a snow, when we have snow.
I understand that. And that was I would say that was the intent of the school system, to have stuff in place. But yet you had 2 contractors were part of the last deal and they didn't have stuff in place. So I at this point, I can't even trust that they'll do this year. And here we are talking about these same vendors. I'm very disappointed, very disappointed, because we've had several talks about bringing these vendors, bringing a mitigation plan to get out of this privatization. And we're still voting on this type of stuff as if we never had any conversations from the beginning. I'm so disappointed. And I just want to say it, Chair Wilcox, during the meeting, we need to separate them, and I'm done. I'm so disappointed with the school system.
As this was a public bid, there were only 4 bidders on this contract.
But I was asking for them not to be even in the bid. So maybe the board actually made maybe we, Attorney Lexiata, maybe we dropped the ball too. I'm disappointed.
All right, Attorney Alexiadis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While we tend to refer to the purchasing process generally as bids, I think it's important to remember that in this case, these are RFPs, not bids. So under an RFP, you're allowed to consider various factors, including past performance, as long as it's spelled out in the request for proposals. And you have more leeway not to go with the low bidder as it would be in a formal competitive sealed bid process. And the bar, I mean, what Member Downer, I think what you're talking about is a debarment process to prevent certain companies or entities or persons from submitting bids in a formal competitive bid process to disqualify them in advance so they could not possibly be the lowest qualified bidder. That's a different process. And I think that's yeah, and that has not occurred, nor did we expect it to occur because we understood this was going to be an RFP process, and I presume that's why Dr. White and his staff and colleagues went about it this way. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Go to Ms. Downer, and then Dr. Yarbrough.
So the reason why it didn't occur is because everybody don't talk about it after. I've talked about this several times with disbarment. This is not my first time having this conversation. I'm not going to mention the two vendors up here, but everyone knows what type of job they did. So I don't understand why it seems like a surprise. And I have asked several times about this to you, Attorney Alexiata. We can talk offline.
If I may respond, please. A debarment applies to a formal bid process. This was not a formal bid process.
Okay, well,
excuse me, please. You're talking about apples and oranges.
So you basically cut me off, and then you're going to say, "Excuse me, please stop."
No, I was recognized. I spoke. You tried to interrupt me.
No,
Ms. Downer, could we let Attorney Alexiadis finish his answer?
No, I don't want to hear it no more. I'm all set.
Okay, Attorney Alexiadis, go ahead.
No. As I said, this was not a formal bid process, so the debarment process would not apply to this. It's an RFP process where things like past performance may be considered by the evaluating committee. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes, thank you. So a couple of questions have been answered so far. Thank you, Dr. White, for talking about and spelling out in the documentation what the evaluation process would be. And it looks to be more intentional, more robust, and more timely than what I've known about in the past. So thank you for putting that in place. And you also answered the question as to whether particular vendors have fewer, the same, or more zones awarded to them compared to any previous contract that they've had. And you said that they have fewer zones than what they've had before. So that was important for me to know. Thank you. A couple of questions. One, do we have, so the evaluation process that you talk about, that you've outlined moving forward that we'll implement, I think will give us robust performance information. Do we have robust archival information of past performance, or is that documentation not really in place like it should have been?
That documentation was not in place. It was anecdotal. There was some pictures, but that nothing was ever organized into making a complaint or organized into giving us something to write. So going forward, it is this evaluation after each storm, each zone, and each vendor, so that we have a running record of their performance so that we can make decisions.
Okay, thank you. In assessing a vendor's equipment and personnel capacity to complete snow removal, how do we factor in the number of schools in the proposed school zone and the time needed by the vendor to clear everything based on the identified school day schedule? So I don't know if that question makes sense. So
Yes.
it's a little
So
convoluted.
that was what the listing of the equipment was, as well as going out to see the equipment and going over with them what was their logistics plans for from muster to deployment of their team. So from that also went factoring who could handle more zones, who should not be doing more zones. And again, because with limited number of vendors to select, this is what we had to do to make sure we got coverage across our schools.
Understood. Thank you. And two more topics. One is the first topic is the timeliness of corrective actions for a snow event or ice event. How would the district and the vendor minimize disruptions to the school day start and staff being present and having being able to access the property, access the property? So what I mean is, let's say there's a chance that a school is not fully cleared in the way that it needs to be. How can we assure that a vendor actually gets back to that property to do what they need to do in a way that doesn't result in delays in the school start day or people not coming to school or work?
Well, we begin with active monitoring during the time period of getting the process. Once it's decided whether we're doing a delay, actually prior to that, we will be meeting with them about what the anticipated time of snow and the activation of the crew. So that's the first part of it. And then active monitoring, the ground supervisor will be out, I will be out, the facilities director will be out looking at the zones, making sure things are done so that we can make sure they're ready. And one of the key things is also make sure that we dispatch early enough so that the spaces can be made ready in time.
Okay. Great, thank you. And the last topic, and it might be for you, Dr. White, or you, Attorney Alexiadis, how are the vendors held liable for any financial impact of their work? So, for example, if extra work is needed where we pay an additional vendor, a new vendor, to accomplish what someone else should have done, if that comes up, how would that compensation work? And in the event of an unfortunate injury, how will those associated costs be covered? Is there anything in the contract language that would have the vendor participate in being accountable financially for anything that may transpire? How might that work?
Attorney
Yes,
Alexiadis?
Attorney Alexiadis.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, sorry, Mr.
I'll take the second question, and that's that each contract has insurance requirements, and they must submit a current certificate of insurance that's compliant with the minimum requirements that are established by the purchasing department, and often in with the advice of the city's insurance consultant and risk management people. So the liability in terms of and we have, there's liability. We have various claims and lawsuits arising from people injured on snowy or icy or wet surfaces near our buildings, and that's why we have insurance requirements and corresponding indemnification clauses.
Thank you. And just a closing thought. I understand, Dr. White and Dr. Negron, that part of looking at what is a good snow removal system for the district in terms of what is internal, what is external in terms of vendors. Is a multi-step kind of phase in out process where we have to think about our equipment, we have to think about the available staff. And my understanding is that there are kind of a couple of steps on the timeline that are needed in terms of exploration, but also in terms of execution. And one of the reasons why I expected to see snow contracts is because I know the city does not have the equipment to do all the snow removal that's necessary. So I look forward, just as we continue to explore what we can bring in-house and on what timeline and at what cost. Thank you, Mr. Wilcox.
All right, thank you. Just a couple of questions or comments of my own here. I do appreciate the program specifications. Notice these are much better and more thorough than previous in terms of the requirements and outlining the monitoring. Dr. White, the purpose of the monitoring is not only to make sure the work is done, but then also to establish a documented trail, paper trail for not going with a vendor in the future if they're not able to perform. Am I right about that?
Correct. That's the point. One, to both note the good performance, but also what sometimes is more important, noticing bad performances so that we can make informed decisions through the procurement process to make sure we have the best vendors doing the job.
Okay, thank you. I think that's key because without that, because these are public processes that people are participating in, we need to have documented evidence if we were going to not include somebody moving forward. I think it would be helpful, and it would also help protect us from, legal action, et cetera. So I appreciate that. I think it's similar to the landscaping monitoring that you instituted, which I think was a good approval. And we are going to look at the reports or the evidence of that in a meeting next month in November. So I appreciate that. I would expect that this committee is going to require, as a discussion item after any snow event at any one of our meetings, just to see how things are going, to be able to talk about how vendors are performing and, so just an update. If we've had a snow event during one of these between meetings, that you're able to talk about how things are going and if your plans for monitoring and evaluation are working. I think it's key. I think it was something that's missing. I'm very appreciative of Ms. Downer for pushing on this topic, and I'm glad that there's going to be some things in place. I know that we've had one COO that then was gone, and then a temporary one, and then now you in place. And so I appreciate some of the things that you're instituting here. I did want to ask one question. So this is still required. Everything is through the small contract development program. Do you anticipate, or do you think this kind of limits some of our options here? I know in the past, I think it was Mr. Carter was talking about maybe working with a larger vendor, but that was not something available to us because of the city ordinance related to small.
Correct. Yes. Right. At the moment, I do believe it does limit us a little, and it shows by 4 vendors bidding on this. So that's something we have to explore about what the possibilities could be for the future.
Okay. So appreciate that. And like Dr. Yarborough was mentioning, I also, look forward to seeing how this develops. I know you've been having a lot of conversations with the city about this and as well. So I'll just say the final thing I'll say is I do appreciate that you all have allocated more funds towards this to better match the reality we've seen, understanding that these are not to exceed. And if snow does not fall, then we will not incur these costs if there's no snow or ice events or pre-treating. So it's all very well lined out exactly what this is going to cost us. So I appreciate that. But I also appreciate having more allocated. I think last year this is, as was pointed out, this is 600,000 allocated, which is, I think, at least of what we've had over the last 2 years, as opposed to, I think it was 450, and then having all the change orders and So I understand that was budgetary reasons. This isn't the vendors telling us this is what they're going to do. This is us telling them what we're allocating to this. And I'm thankful to Mr. Hernandez and his team and you also being able to allocate more sufficient resources to this, understanding that we have very little budget leeway. So I do appreciate that. So thank you. Ms. Downer?
I just have a couple questions, and then I'm looking at it. So are we not anticipating change orders with this new RFP process?
We've allocated and are trying to stick to it. Change orders would only come if we exceed our budget.
So last year, two of the vendors, I'm not going to say, they each had 2 zones. Did we change anything as far as the number of locations that need to be snow removal or pre-treat? Did we change any of the zones as far as, let's say, for instance, one zone had 8 locations and that zone has like 12 or something? Did we change that? Now,
we've split up, we try to split the zones out as evenly as possible, as well as with looking at distance from school to school. And so the zones are about even. Some are 9, some are 10.
okay, that does sound about right, but it's funny that they said they can do 2. 2 times that was 180 for 2 zones. So now they're saying they could just do 1 for 120. Wow. Okay. All right. Just make sure, for my fellow board members, make sure these are separate, please. Thank you.
Understood. I will move these. I'm assuming what you mean is separately by company
Yes.
and not the 3 for the one vendor that has 3 of these, moving those
Right.
as a
Everything got to be basically voted on separately. Please, that's all I'm asking.
separately
Thank
by
you.
vendor. Understood.
Yep. Thank you. Or by whatever. Yeah, by vendor. That's fine.
Okay. Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes. 2 quick topics, hopefully quick. One, I looked at one of our vendors on the list. I think Concrete Creations, we just spoke about, and it could be in the other ones. I don't recall, about having the capacity if it's over 12 feet, maybe, I don't remember, but being able to physically move snow and relocate it from the properties. Just a clarifying question is, do we have a general policy on when snow stays located at a site and builds up there versus us requiring or asking our vendors to relocate it elsewhere?
It's a combination of how the depth, the length of the storm, how much snow there is, as well as the vendors have to meet city ordinances. So they're not to be dumping it into the street. So it would, in some cases, it would have to be moved to corners of the property. And as it piles up, if it's one of our bad winters, we will make plans for how to take care of its removal.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is kind of preemptive in the sense that there were a limited number of vendors who applied. I think you mentioned, or in the documentation might say 4, and we've awarded our contracts to 3. Or that's what we're in the process of considering. And for one of the vendors, they have multiple zones. And my question is, are they set up for the vendor that has multiple zones? Is that vendor set up for success in the sense that we think that vendor can handle those zones no problem? Or do we think maybe they might be at their maximum? I'm just trying, I think there's a difference between I think there's a difference between uh, or yeah, just are we pushing them to their max, or do we think they actually can do this? Because if something goes wrong, they're a little bit late, or they're consistently schools that are not getting plowed. Um, I wouldn't want to inappropriately mark them negatively if it's the case that they never had the capacity to do this much. But if it's the case that we think they do have the capacity, I just want to clear that up.
Yeah,
in the
they
beginning.
do have the capacity. Again, touring the site, seeing all of the equipment. This was all equipment that they owned and available to be used. It wasn't a situation of having to rent at the time of an event.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wilcox.
All right, thank you. There's nothing else on this. I'll go ahead and make the main motion, and that is that I move that we send to the full board these 6 abstracts, this 1 substitute ARPA agreement, these 3 agreements, the 2 amendments, the 1 data sharing agreement, the 3 purchase orders, and the 5 contracts.
Second.
It's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Here none, we'll go ahead and vote. President Yarborough.
Oh, can I add a discussion?
Oh, please.
I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not supposed to do this because we already started the vote. I can go ahead and vote. It's yes. It was going to be yes before. Anyway, huh?
Okay. So you're a yes?
I am a yes. It was going to be yes before, but I'm a yes.
You were the first person voting if you wanted to raise a
Can you
discussion
retract
point.
it? Right. Can you retract?
Yeah, it was just around. I just wanted the information on the data that I brought up, just those questions, if they could be provided by the time this goes to the full board. That's all.
And just to clarify, which item was this for?
It was around this was for the data agreement, and around if there's something lost in the performance of the software, if the student doesn't provide address information or their guardian doesn't provide address information or date of birth. It was just a clarifying question on that piece. I would like a response to that.
Okay.
If it's okay with the committee.
That works for me. Is that sufficient, Ms. DeMayo, for getting, okay. All right.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Then we'll go ahead and vote. President Yarborough?
Yes.
Ms. Downer?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so the motion carries. Next item is the September 2025 financial report and the FY 25-26 budget update. Mr. Hernandez?
Yes, let me see if I can share this document here. Can you see the document on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me see if that's a good size.
You might want to go into presenter mode.
Yeah, I was hoping that. Okay, let me do that then and see. Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So the financial reports through September. As you remember, last month we reported both months of July and August together. Now we should be able to just do a month by month report. As we always start, we start with the strategic operating plan. Then we're going to basically split this presentation into 2 sections, the general funds and then also the special funds. The expenditures through September 30th were $34.1 million. And again, every time I say this line, so I don't repeat this so many times, these are the expenses that have already come through, not necessarily, it doesn't include the encumbered amounts, which is important to have that conversation as not many people always understand the difference. When we get to it, I'll explain a little bit because that really shows you the true picture of where we are when you actually look at the encumbered part of it. General fund expenditures through September are 24.3, and the special funds expenditures are 9.8. Now we're going to talk only about the general fund. And remember, the general fund is the one that comes out of the $230 million budget, which is the one you see at the bottom. Through September, we have spent the $24.3 million that I mentioned earlier. Now, it is important to also look at that column that also says monthly encumbrances. That's $64.5 million. So I say this because I don't want to create the false expectation that in the first 3 months, July, August, September, we only spent $24 million, and people will be like, "Oh, wow, $24 million. That's not a lot out of a $213 million budget." You have to look at the encumbrances because that's how we know some of the expenses that we have already committed that have not been paid out yet, or some expenses that will be committed in the next few months, but we have not paid those yet because the months, the actual service have not been provided. Perfect example is transportation. We only see $1 million of expenses in transportation through September. Anybody will say, "What you mean $1 million? That's very little." But we have encumbered already $32.3 million of transportation. That covers pretty much the whole year of transportation, with the exception that there will be more transportation added to, and those are the add-ons, what we call the add-ons, the field trips, athletic events. Those are not encumbered yet, so this number will go up. Unfortunately, as you can see, we have already gone over budget on this one. It happens pretty much every year. There's transportation costs are just really, really, really high. But we'll monitor this throughout the year so we can find savings, in other areas so we can cover this. And also, there's also the reimbursement portion from the interdistrict that we have yet to apply to this. That's normally about, I think this year is going to be about $2.8 million that will come back out of this. So it will help. But I'll tell you right now that this line will continue to go up, and we'll just continue to monitor and see how we can mitigate some of these overages in transportation. And that's the only line that really have a story to tell right now. Everything else is too early to tell exactly how it looks on a month-to-month basis. But this is the picture that we have so far. To be honest, it's not a bad picture so far. So I'm just waiting to see how October and November looks like to then start giving projections. These are the detail. These next 3 slides are the details of this report that I just talked about. So if you want to see exactly how any of these categories breaks down into more specific line items, here's where you could find those particular details. I'm not going to go over each of them, but just know that these 3 slides, when this gets posted, you'll be able to spend some more time and look at this. And here you can see, the transportation section here, which is the one that still needs to have some revenue applied to it from the interdistrict portion of it, and also, some of those add-ons. But again, transportation, we actually project ahead, so that's why you see the encumbrances so high. And that gives you at the end on year-to-date actually the $24.3 million that we spoke about and the $64.5 million in encumbrances. So this is just the breakdown of the first report. Some notes that I took out of these. Again, it's too early to know a lot about the staffing, and that's the one that I want to look at the most in the upcoming months. But right now, this presentation only includes actual spending through September. It does not show any projection for the rest of the year. I want to be very conservative and very responsible about showing projections with numbers that do not reflect a full month of all actual expenses. So I'm waiting for that to happen between October and November and have a greater, broader data points in order for me to really do a better, good projection. Transportation costs for the most part have already been encumbered for the year. I spoke about that. This does not include field trips or any other add-on services. Transportation cost currently does not reflect revenue offset by about 2.6. I said 2.8 earlier. It's actually 2.6 million for the interdistrict grant. And then the contract vetting committee that I spoke to you about last month, that I said that it was going to start in October. It already started. It was implemented and it's currently meeting on a weekly basis. We are making some slight minor changes as we go along and we start learning exactly, the what works, what doesn't work. But it's actually working very well. And it's basically on its way to start producing some results, in the near future. Preliminary financial report. This is for special funds. So there's a big change here. So I need to speak to this so that way if you are to compare this report month to month basis, I have to clarify this point. This first column that speaks about the budget, this number will continue to change, possibly on a month-to-month basis up until a certain point that then it stops. The reason is that our system does not allow for us to put the budget in until the grant or the money is approved or actually comes through the door. So we have our hands tied a little bit as far as putting into the system, the full budget that we expect to have. That's why you're gonna see the next slide that actually shows you that portion, so that way we know what we are hoping, what we're projecting to have. But this report from the system only shows what we have approved so far or what we have already come through the doors. So the budget last month, I think I said that it was between 11 or 15 million dollars. I can't remember exactly the exact number. And now it grew to 31. It's supposed to grow up to 81 million dollars at some point. We have already spent 9.8. We have encumbered almost 8 million dollars. So based on this budget, we still have 14 million dollars to go. But again, this budget is only what we've been allowed to put into the system. On the next page, on the next slide, here you can see on column F, you see this number here, 81.2 million at the bottom on the right corner, 81,208,000. That's what we expect to have from special funds for this year, not the $31 million that you just saw on the previous slide. And here is the breakdown of what we are hoping to receive. Now, some of these numbers will continue to change as we get updated information from the different grantors or grant entities, state, federal. However, the budget stays the same. The budget is the budget. So I don't want to set the false expectation that we're going to continue changing the budget every single time a number changes. The budget is the budget. When I start providing projections, you're going to see the reforecast and you're going to see how any changes actually play out in reality against the year to date. I want to also spend some time talking about this because I think that now it's important to have this conversation. 2 years ago, when you look at column A, let's look at 24. I think the budget was somewhere around 130 something million dollars from special funds. Then last year, the budget was $107 million. So it went down. This year now, when it goes down to $81 million. That is the reality of how the ESSER funding, as it phases out. That's the reality that we are living now and that potentially we're going to live, in the future. That $80 million will be the average. I hope that for that number obviously to grow, as we have had to make some difficult decisions, in the mitigation plan due to the reduction in special funding. Another big factor here, and I think I spoke to this, but I'm not sure if I did, just in case, is row number 11, the school readiness. That money that used to be, I think last year was about $15 million all together. It now is barely even $1 million, but that's only because the funding now doesn't come through us. The state pays the providers of early learning centers. They pay directly, the state directly to the provider, so the money doesn't come through us. So it was basically a pass through. So we just received the funding that we need or that we are allowed to receive for the functions that we do have regarding these particular grants. But now we don't get the money that we passed on to the providers. So that's why the funding substantially changed. Other than that, it's mostly ESSER funding. We did get some up and downs in some other line items. We did get a little bit more money in Alliance, Title I. We did lose a little bit of money in adult education. So there's some up and downs. At the end of the day, $81 million is what we're hoping and projecting to have, for this year. And that $81 million includes $8.4 million in column B of carryover funding from the previous year. So carryover funding is also another topic that in the future we should have that conversation about the risk of counting on carryover funding. Carryover funding is never guaranteed. It's not something that we should put all of our eggs into that basket of carryover funding because carryover funding is not guaranteed. Some funders allow for you to carry over the funding, some don't. And there's no guarantee that we will always have carryover funding. So we need to also have that difficult conversation of what our reality is. Our reality is that this year, the new funding from special funds is really technically $72.7 million, not 81. It's only 81 because of the carryover funding. So we need to have that conversation throughout the year as we build the budget for next year. What if we don't have any carryover funding? Is our special funds going to be only 72, somewhere in the low 70s? What's the plan? So we need to have those conversations. Sometimes we try to ignore it because we're hoping that we're still going to be the same, and that's not what the job is, right? The job is to speak about what the realities are, the risks, and always have a plan in place in case that things don't turn out the way you hope so. So this is the breakdown of the special funds for this year. And this basically speaks to what portions of the special funds, what portion of the expenditures they covers. You will always see that is the full-time salaries is the biggest chunk. It's more than 50% of it. And then before I move on to my next presentation, Mr. Chair, I'll leave it open for any questions.
Comments or questions? Ms. Downer?
So thank you, Chief Hernandez. This was something that our former Chief Hannons had already prepared us for. Thank you. Thank you for just, being honest, transparent. $36 million of non-ESSER funds is a lot of money, but we're still doing the same things, expecting different results. But thank you for being very transparent with us. Thank you. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Please continue, Mr. Hernandez.
I think
Mr.
Mr.
Question?
Garber.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. 2 points. One, I think you mentioned, I just want to hear it again. For transportation, what is listed now and encumbered, plus what is currently been billed or paid, that's the expected amount for the year, not including field trips and other special transportation costs. We're not looking at half the year, right?
No. What you're looking at is the full year of the regular transportation, which is the most expensive one. That's the one that we have a contract for a set amount. What is not encumbered is those other add-ons that we talked about, the field trips, athletic events, and such. So those will increase the number, Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I think looking at your slide 9, maybe, or just 2 slides back or 1 slide back with the special funds.
Special funds? Sure.
This one here. So the total for column F, that's the sum of columns B and E. Is that how I'm reading that?
Well, you can look at it. Technically it's B and E.
Okay.
Because E is the sum of C and D.
Okay. That's what I was looking at. Okay. Thank you.
So B and E, yes.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Let me open up the next one here. Right here. Okay. An update on the FY26 budget. So there's been a lot of discussion about the budget for this
You can
year.
still see your existing presentation. Did you mean to change screens?
Yes, I did. Give me a second. Let me stop and let me reshare. Okay, how about that?
Yes.
You see an Excel file. Okay. So I'm not gonna go line by line here. This will be, available for your review. Because it's not that it's such a long, but it is kind of long and a lot of numbers. So I will just at least tell you what this is. I'll explain to you the format of it. I'll go through the other tab. There's 3 tabs. And then, I'll take any questions if there are any questions today. If not, obviously throughout the week, I'll be available to answer any questions. So there's been a lot of discussion about the FY26 budget and a line item budget, to bring up more transparency and more information. So this is a work that we did over the last couple of months to try to solidify and come up with something that took into account the budget that was set forth by by my predecessor and the team, and then also at the same time align it with the reality of today, right? So by the time this budget is done, it's done, many months ago, right? And then after having to go through a mitigation plan, after the district having to make some changes, regarding staffing and other expenses. I want to take that into account because if I was going to put something forth, I wanted to be able to be as close to the reality as possible. So taking all those pieces into account, we were able to come up with a line item budget um, for the entire district. Another component that's added to this that's important for me to raise is that not only I did it for the general fund budget, which is the budget that most people get to see, that's the one that people talk about. But in order to bring that transparency to the next level, I wanted to align also the special funds budget and in the interdistrict funds budget in the same line item side by side with the final total at the end, so you can see which funds cover what. And that's important to do, not only for our stakeholders, our community, and stakeholders to know and understand which monies, which funds cover what, but also so you can see the degree and the spectrum of how these funds interact with each other. Because later on, I presume that we're going to have conversations about how the special funds interact with the general funds, the interdistrict, and how important it is for us to, have these buckets of monies available so so that interaction can happen in a way that could be beneficial for the district and eventually, our children. So it is important for me to have it all in one page so you can see it by side by side. I'll give you an example of something that, caught my attention. When you look at the salaries for the teachers, the general funds is going to cover $81 million of it. But then the other $63 million, that comes from other funding. So the general fund, as important as it is because it includes the ECS funding and it also includes the local funding, it doesn't pay for the full amount of all the teachers. It doesn't pay for all the salaries. We need $62 million from the interdistrict and the special funds in order to really, really have the full amount of the funding that we need to cover the teachers. And the teachers, they make up about 43% of the entire budget. So that's why this line we talked about it a lot because it is the biggest line item. The next one that's the biggest next to this one, I think, is transportation, which combined is about 9%. So it's not even close. And that's why this line is so important. But this actually shows the full picture of how important it is to supplement the funding with the special funds and interdistrict funds. So that is the format of this budget. It gives you all the three buckets by line item, and you can see every single line item here all the way to the bottom. And at the bottom, you'll see that we have the budget for the 213 of the general funds. We have the almost $81 million. You saw that on the presentation that I did earlier. The special funds was $81.2 million, I believe. And this one shows 80.9. And again, that's because once the budget is done, the budget is the budget. You don't change the budget. But then the other format allows me to update the budget as it goes because that's how I know whether we're tracking, in reality, whether we're tracking good or not. But this is the actual budget that has been put together for special funds and then the interdistrict. So if anybody asks how much money it costs to run the district, it's $331 million. But that comes with a caveat, right? It's $331 million after we had already had to do a lot of mitigation, $23.2 million worth of mitigation and cuts. So the reality is that the district will be better served, if we are able to capture, somewhere closer to the $350 million, $360 million range, in order for us to have all the services and not have to rely so much on the special funds. I say this because I'm preparing ourselves to have this conversation, right? If special funds does not, if we cannot sustain this level of special funding, which is technically not up to us, this is just the grants and how the funding, comes from the different grantors. If we're not able to sustain this and then we go back to the low 70s, which is technically what the new funding is, there's no other funding for us to supplement. There's no other funding for us to use to replace whatever those costs are. But the same is true if we are able to receive more special funds or we're able to receive more general funds through the state, through the ECS, then we're able to alleviate the pressure that special funds have to cover for some of the items that normally could be covered by general funds. Alleviating the special funds from that pressure will allow the superintendent and the district to create new programming, to innovate, to improve the quality of service. There's a lot of other things that we could do with the programming that we have right now that we cannot do with the special funds, which is what most of that funding is for, because we don't have enough on the general funds budget. So that those dynamics are important to have those conversations throughout the year so we can understand as they go up or down, so we can understand what the impact is because they interact with each other throughout the year. And I think I mentioned that earlier, but I wanted to mention it now with this picture in front of you of the three buckets and how they interact with each other. That's extremely important to understand that those dynamics. And as the one goes up, the other one gets affected, immensely. So this is the budget. The second tab will be the special funds. So these $80 million that you see here, let's call it $81 million, rounding it up, right? 81. Here you can see the breakdown of what makes up the $81 million. And again, I did make a note that a portion of these revenue sources are projections based on historical data. We only know about $31 million for sure. That's what I showed you on the presentation before. But based on conversations with funders, what we know that's coming down the pipeline, we think that $81 million is the number that we should have at the end of the year. But any changes on this will have a direct impact on the general fund, and positive or negative. If it goes up, obviously, then that's a positive change. But if it goes down, then it's a negative change. But here you can see the breakdown as well. So there is no question about what makes up the special funds. This is what it is. It doesn't get any more clear than this. Now, another area that another thing that I recall hearing from some of the stakeholders was, so what does other contractual means? What does, other contract services mean? That's a big number. That's $23 million. What is tuition? What does that even mean? Like, so in the definition of some of these particular line items. So we took a stab at this. I didn't do all of them. Many of them are just very simple. I mean, once you see what it is, then you know what it is. Like cleaning, I don't have to explain what cleaning is. Like there are some that are very, easy to understand. We took a first stab at it, and I will continue to add to this. But we took a stab at the ones that were the biggest amount in the budget. Those are the ones that normally get the most attention. Salaries obviously is a big one here. Then at the bottom we have health insurance is important. That's a big number too. Then we have some other ones in transportation. We have some communications. We have the tuition. That's a big one as well. That's closer to the 20 something million dollar. All the contractual services. I just talked about that. I gave you some examples here. So there are some explanations here of what each of those lines are. And again, we can continue to add more to some of these old line items. I just need a little bit more time to get to those, but at least I did the ones with the biggest amount, the ones that I've heard through different communications, whether it was via email or in verbal communication, that were the most that people wanted to know the most. So this document, it's still a live document, and I will tweak it a little bit here and there. But I'm hoping that this is a good start for me to now be able to start working on FY27 budget. It is my hope that I could move to FY27 budget and start working on it. I think that going through this exercise helped a lot, especially for somebody that just came in, right? That I'm fairly new. It helped me a lot to understand the structure and understand how we should move forward now with something slightly different than what we've seen in the past. And I hope that this is helpful and that this helps to answer many questions about the line item budget for this year.
All right, thank you. Are there comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, Mr. Hernandez. This is a very, very important depiction and representation of our budget. Thank you very, very much for putting it together, for you and the team working. I would love to have a copy of this and a copy of your updates. Couple of questions. One is, and I'll just say them up front. One is, where here is the capital budget represented? And my second question is, where you have the special funds source detail and I'm looking at this current page you have up. So is it the case that the a separate funds category, a source, a particular source, might show up in multiple line items? And is there a way that's not cumbersome that might allow us to go to a special fund source and see what specific budget lines it feeds?
All right, so to your first question, the capital budget is not part of our district, budget.
Okay.
And I can confirm with the team, but my understanding is that that's a budget that's, by the city, from the city. So and maybe Dr. White can, if he has any information on how the capital budget works, but it is not within this structure of the funding that we manage internally at the district. But I'll get a little bit more details unless Dr. White has any more information on how the capital budget works.
So it's a 2-year capital budget. It's approximately 15 million split over 2 years, and then that's capital, and includes things in addition to facilities, other departments, but that's essentially how the capital budget is derived.
Okay, thank you. The capital budget does or does not pay for staff? It does not?
Does not.
Okay. Okay. So it interacts with the budget represented here. And we talk about it in F&O a lot. We make decisions based on it, but it's not a part of this budget here. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
The second part of your question, I don't know if there's any way for you to recap it again, but I think I understood that the special funds here, that you wanted to know if there was a way to know what, let's say, for example, let's take this amount, 8.2, which line items this 8.2 pays for. Is that what you were asking for on your?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
because I think that detail gets lost in the previous tab.
Yeah, here you could see the detail, but it doesn't say, and it may be a little bit cumbersome, right? Because there's a lot of different funding that will pay. Like, for example, this for 228,000 could easily be a combination of 6, 7, 8, 10 different, special funds, sources, right? It'll be a very cumbersome spreadsheet, to put together. I mean, I could put comments here that could tell you which sources.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that that's very helpful unless you understand that that's the case, but.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the other tab, special funds source detail, I mean, if it's of value, I personally like the detail. It helps me understand. But if it's of value to the committee, the board, the larger district, you could maybe say what the higher percentage category is. So the IDEA funds are 80% pay for this line item. That might be helpful. But I do agree it could be very cumbersome and it could be too much information on one page. Those are just my 2 comments right now.
Yeah, let me give it some thought and see if I can put some together that at least shed some light into. I know what you're asking for. I don't want to make it too cumbersome that then it becomes more problematic than not, only because it will be hard to understand, right?
Yes.
But I'll give it some thought and see if I can come up with something. And again, some of these amounts have not been approved yet. So if I provide the information of which line items each of these is going to pay for, as these amounts change, or we get approved or not approved, it will change substantially. It's not like the general funds that we already know this money we have is guaranteed, right? It's easy for me to be very open about it. This one, it changes constantly throughout the years. We see what the true numbers are. So let me give it some thought and see if I could do something that's very dynamic that I can change easily. Because then otherwise I will be a slave to have to change every single time, every time,
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a good use of my time. But I'll give it some thought and see what I can do.
Thank you much.
All right.
To that last point, I think one thing, because the special funds would also have abstracts attached to them as they're approved. So for instance, we had several tonight, including the Alliance. maybe maybe it's as simple as linking or providing the meeting date where the documentation is, so that if somebody wanted to, because in the documentation, it does break it out, but it's not in an easily manipulated form for the purposes of it showing up there, but being able to just say, for instance, that the Alliance District Grant backup information, if people do want to know what it actually pays for, it was approved on X number board date, and then that way people would be able to refer to it. So it's a little less cumbersome but everything that's been approved will have an abstract, as far as I know. So
Correct.
it's a thought. I greatly appreciate seeing this. I've been on this board for 6 years now, and we very familiar with this through the budget documents, through the monthly reports, and but seeing the things lined up, even the difference between your second presentation and the first one, where here's general funds and here's the special funds, being able to see that broken out, and also being able to see just how much is done in like salaries on the special funds. It's just a lot. And so what I heard you say is that if people have questions, you're happy to delve into those numbers. Or if people are curious, like, what does this column mean? And, that might be something that people could contact you or the committee and just say, what do you mean by this column or this row? What's the definition of this? And then that might help. Or I see that there's a definition here, but I don't understand what it is. Perhaps more detail could be added. Is that something you're willing to entertain?
Yeah, I mean, the district is committed to transparency, right? And we are in this journey of making sure that any questions from any of our stakeholders, whether it's, elected officials, the community, members of our team, teachers, administrators, whoever it is, that have any questions about this budget, they are more than welcome to submit them. And then we'll do our best to answer them, in a timely manner. So yeah, that's the commitment that I made. That's the commitment that the superintendent has made, to be transparent to the community. And this is just one step towards that goal. And I think that in the future, any other presentation, even the budget process, you will see that will be the theme of our presentations and our budget, process, transparency, and making sure that there's a trust relationship between us and the community, that they understand, how we're using the funding, how we're allocating the funding, how we're implementing, equity across. All these pieces are extremely important for me, and you'll see that, as we go along. So yeah, these questions, I don't take them as questions because you missed these or you didn't explain these. These are the questions that actually help me build, a better future, right? These questions help me understand, okay, this is important for the community. So the next time that I go and I do this, I'm going to answer this question, even before it's even asked, right? This is my opportunity for me to understand what's important for the community. So yeah, these questions are not just welcome, but encouraged.
All right, thank you. I'll just say, obviously next year's budget is very key. So I was happy to hear that the process of doing this is helping inform that. I think it's great when we have fresh eyes, somebody new stepping into a role and taking a look at what's existing and then working to understand it and then bringing their own ideas, and fresh eyes, I think, is just very key. So thank you very much for this. I do request that both these presentations are posted with the meeting materials for this meeting. And I do recommend also that the FY 25-26 budget update document is posted onto the district website in the finance section with any other budget information that's there. And I expect that'll be a growing area for documents and things, particularly in the next year, but even now. Any other comments or questions on this? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hernandez. Next item on the agenda is a transportation update. I don't know if there's one. Oh, Ms. Coleman.
Good evening, everyone.
Yep.
I believe you asked a couple of questions. I want to thank Mr. Hernandez for that wonderful introduction to transportation and being budget in the red as it continues. I believe it had something to do with a teacher's comments at the board meeting. And you just wanted an update on some major issues and how we track things. Is that correct?
Yeah, there was one or two comments, and that not just in the board meeting, but just have heard it from,
right,
complaint from a parent or two, just particularly around late arrivals and the impact on instruction and so on.
Okay, we'll take the blame for part of that. As you know, I think one of the biggest issues that we had this year was providing the change. All of our buses are connected. The buses are tiered. They're considered 1, 2, and 3 tiers. Most of the high schools are on the first tier. One of the issues we added to the first tier this year was that ESIMs needed to share buses. We decided they needed to share with BRADA, which is now a first tier school. Growing pains. One was the distance, one was routing, one was people just accepting change to begin with. Some of it was very difficult. One of the other issues, particularly in the high schools this year, is the yonder pouches. And having to put that together. So what we've looked at was staggering some arrivals, particularly changing a couple of bell times, trying to make sure that we could do that, looking at schools that had numerous buses. So if you have a school, Cross has 30 buses that come in the morning. They are a little bit unique because they have a larger parking lot. People can come in, there's a little bit more space. They have a larger set of security and are a little more versed in how to make sure that they can get kids in and out. We moved up drivers' report times. That was making sure that the drivers were into base a little bit earlier so they can get their buses ready. No excuse for starting. We've did some extensive route reviews. Thank you very much to, I'm sure some are listening, to the ESIMS parents in particular. Some of the interdistrict parents, they gave us some nice feedback. Some of them were extremely patient in waiting, and we've heard from them and thanking us for trying to make these changes. The morning changes are a little bit better. Afternoon, there were some issues that we're still working on. We moved a lot of the buses up 10 minutes. You'd be surprised how much 10 minutes can make a difference. Those of you that ride 91 and 95 know that there's can be a difference in 10 minutes makes a difference. We've removed some unnecessary stops. We divided some of the routes that were too long. We had a couple of Hamden, Cheshire, North Haven buses that were connected that we really needed to break those routes up. We've also done that with some of the vans. We reviewed the vans in particular because sometimes the van routes and when they make the routes, it's based on maybe a 2-minute stop. Well, some of our students with disabilities take a little bit longer than 2 minutes to get on the van. Some of the vans also require harnesses, different seatbelt arrangements. So looking at those, you have to tweak the routes looking at those. We've considered parent, school, and bus company personnel concerns. I know I've worked very well with Dr. White and the assistant superintendents trying to get additional security. In some schools is to get additional materials to walking through the wands, checking backpacks, just looking at the schools, basically their routines and how it goes. Some schools have people coming through a little bit differently and checking. They have other people checking. We also, with some of the right sizing, know that some of the schools have less breakfast and hall coverage to move the students along, particularly that first period classes, and making sure that everybody is working together. The teachers have also been very exceptional with that. You asked a question, I think, about tracking. Most of what we do is via phone call, email, and personal visits. We've had the assistant superintendents, we've had the dispatch managers Teddy Bear and myself, we've been to different schools to look at how it works. Assistant superintendents have been. Some of the schools actually have put together at the beginning of the year very elaborate daily arrival times, which was helpful because we could pass that on to first student. They've also done dismissal times. We've had videos of the lines outside and to look at what it looks like. Assistant Superintendent Parent, on behalf of the Assistant Superintendents, put together a tracker for the schools to report some chronic information. It gave us something to work with. We've worked with through most of those problems, some with greater success than others, but we also reviewed the GPS data on various vehicles with the company, looking at it. We reviewed the tiering connections to make sure. We're also in communication with city agencies, outside companies in regards to street milling, street closures. One of our bigger issues has been Route 80 this year, just trying to make sure. And they started last spring, working with us about all of how that would look and how it does. One of the things that Mr. Hernandez mentioned was also that transportation costs. We do have a contract that is set, and that contract's for 5 years, but the special education transportation, and I know Ms. Jackson gave you a presentation last F&O meeting about how the transportation and tuition costs those vary throughout the year as we have PPT meetings throughout the year and student needs change. Students come in from out of town with various things. So it is not anything that's consistent. We try our best to work on keeping costs down, and we've removed a van here and there, but we've also find a place where we also need it in another building to alleviate some of these delays. Any questions? I'm sure there are.
Yes, comments or questions? Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, one just of a appreciation of one, an appreciation of all the moving parts and all the constituents that are involved in what you just described. And thank you for naming all the feedback items that come into play that you consider for how to make transportation work for our district. As we think about transportation in future years, are you developing a wish list for what changes we may want to make, or thinking about, there was also a question of whether, well, I guess alternating the responsibility between parents and a bus company for bringing children. Some parents may want to drop off their children or carpool, or children will walk. Thinking about maybe the consequences or impacts of doing that in future years. And when might be a good time to start thinking about that as we think about RFPs, as we think about electrification. Yeah, just how's your forethought going?
Yeah, we've looked at some things about ridership in particular. We've got a high school an alternative placement that we're looking particularly at the ridership to think about what we might do with that. Are we better off offering those students bus passes as opposed to vans that they're not riding, and what does that look like? We've got the same thing with parents, and then you also have your Head Start, and your Mayo has an interesting situation that we're also looking at, because the transportation is based on zones, and it's also based on the fact that that's a school that has 3 different times. Their busing has 3 different times. So how does that come in? And they also have specialized busing because they have to have seatbelts. And what does that mean? So we are looking at several things like that. And the idea of polling students, you could start with the high school, I would think. And what can you do? And we are also responsible, and I think I mentioned this before, we're responsible for transportation for our students in the 18 to 22-year-old that they have special needs and they're going to job placements and different things like that. We're still responsible for that. And the numbers vary and the numbers are increasing. So
Thank you.
the wish list is just it's long.
Okay, I'll be ready for it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the overview of how things are going and all the things that you all are looking at. I was going to say there's a lot of moving parts to this, but literally
there are.
Sorry for that. It was halfway
I
out
like
of
the
my
pun.
mouth before I'm like, wait a minute. A lot of moving parts to transportation. Who knew? But so thank you. I just would recommend that if this information is being shared, perhaps with building leaders and union leaders, et cetera, I'm certainly going to let everybody know that at around the 2-hour mark, we had a overview of how things are going and all the things that are being looked at to try to improve it and working with parents, et cetera, on that subject. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing nothing else on this. The next item is the facilities funding gap discussion. Looking at the time, Dr. White, is this something that can be carried over to another meeting?
Yes, it can, because I can add some additional information to it.
All right, thank you. Is that it? Unless there's an objection from the committee, I think that would be good to have even more thorough information presented next time. The legal contract expenditure report, is this going to be posted? You're muted.
Yes, it'll get posted. I'll just briefly share the screen so you see
Okay.
what it is. Okay, are we seeing right now the punitive
It started
expenditures?
screen sharing, but it's not. Oh, there it is.
Okay. All right, so this has been our spending, the largest chunk going to Shipman and Goodman, Bertram Moses for some general ed and then special ed, settling, working on the case from New York, and then Attorney Philpott, who represents us at expulsion hearings.
All right, comments or questions? So just request that this is posted and then just remind everybody that this, the previous years, they tend to be the first October meeting. So if you wanted to compare year over year, this was moved to the second meeting, but the others tend to be in the first October meeting if people want to compare year to year. So any other comments or questions on this? For number 12, any upcoming financial issues we need to be made aware of? Hearing none, in the interest of time, we'll just move the policy to the next meeting. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
It's been moved. I will second it. It's been seconded. Dr. Yarborough, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Downer?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.